NATO, I believe the NATO, the most current NATO assessment of the threats to NATO and to Western civilization basically is Russia. It's still on the first place, Russia, and then the negative effects of migration. They don't say that, it doesn't say that migration as such is negative or danger, but negative effects are still assessed as way less dangerous for us than Russia and its aggressive policies.
From Polish perspective, I can only to confirm every word, and I'd like also to add that we are in a special situation because 20-30% of the Polish population have their roots somewhere in the Ukraine. Many Polish people have relatives, and there is the issue very close to us, and there is a feeling of fear, simple in Polish society, and for us there is a dangerous an attempt to change the boundaries for the first time in the Europe after the Second World War, and there is this can or could start very dangerous process also for another region of the Europe. We in Poland's situation, we are faced also the existence of the Kaliningrad region, where is the huge presence of the Russian army nuclear weapons, and we are confronted still with the opinion that Russia should have a channel to the under 100% control to the Kaliningrad region, and you can imagine what we can think, and you can understand our fear. For example, when officially the chief of the Supreme Staff of Russian Army say that the zone of security for Russia there is on the Vistula River. It means in the middle of the Polish territory. We are, and we want to remain independent country. There is not for acceptance that somebody want to decide about our future. For example, also Russia feel that has the right, for example, saying that when Poland have right to have our military base inside Poland. In East Poland there is too close to Russia. You can help, but only in the Western Poland. That is why we are so hard support the idea of the NATO cooperation, and we are a bit angry that sometimes our partners in the member states of the NATO don't understand this danger, and sometimes there is the opinion, okay, there is kilometers from the territory of the EU or NATO, but in fact there is only 1,000 kilometers. I mean, not Kiev, but Donbass or Kharkiv. What does it mean for today's weapon? 1,000 kilometers. Of course, there is not directly connected this issue with the Visegrad cooperation, but when I said at the beginning about the challenges at the beginning of the 90s to create the regional cooperation format, all our countries had to make a choice between various formats. Of course, the most important for all of us was this Visegrad cooperation, but in case of Poland it was also Polish-Ukrainian, the idea of the Polish-Ukrainian cooperation on the same level of Baltic cooperation. The differences between Poland and Ukrainian, of course, they are bigger than in case of our country, and that is why the winner in the Visegrad cooperation. Thank you.
Only shortly. You know that Hungary has Hungary minority in Ukraine, and the government wants to do everything to protect the interests of these Hungarians living in Ukraine. And in my opinion, the Visegrad Fund is behind the international community when we speak about the solution of the problem between Russia and Ukraine, and about the sanction. I think that it's a very good meet, but I think that we need lots of time to solve the problem with sanctions only. And the Visegrad Group try to do everything together with the international community and with the US as well to find a solution in this question. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Jakub. I'm MA student at the International University of Sarajevo and MA student at the Faculty of Islamic Studies. Maybe my question for the Ambassador of Hungary is a little bit off the topic, but I really have to ask it. What's your comment on statement of your Prime Minister Viktor Orban saying that Islam is a threat of Europe and that Muslims are not welcome in Europe? What's the official standpoint, or is that official point of your government? And maybe the second question for all of you, in recent time we are witnessing a rise of far-right parties in Europe, as well as in Poland and Slovakia. What's the reason behind that? And the third one, some recommendations for the process in Bosnia and Herzegovina, since all of you passed this process that we are going now through. Thank you.
Okay. I think that you remember that there was a war here in former Yugoslavia from 1995. And I have to say that the borders were open. The borders of Hungary was open in front of the people. It was not important who was Muslim, who was Serb, who was Croats. And I think that the situation is a little bit other, because I don't know what kind of question is migration question, social, economical, I don't know what. And I hope you remember that Hungary sent a signal in 2014 that something is wrong. Something is happened, but not in Hungary, but in the world. And after that, when in Hungary was more than 100,000 people, migrants or refugees, the government sent a signal to the European Union that something we have to do. But nobody was interested in the question. I hope you remember. And when, for example, in August or July, was
were in Hungary more than 1,070 people, nobody was interested in the solving of the question. This was our problem, only our problem. And why the government did? Because we are member states of Schengen, and the government of Hungary wanted to protect the borders of Schengen. And it is not easy, but at this moment, the situation is terrible, we can say, because the measures in connection with the Schengens doesn't work. And I think the first question is, how is it possible to solve this problem? And after that, this is my opinion, the solution is not in Europe. The solution is in the Middle East, and in Africa, in other places. And when we are able to solve the problem, for example, in the Middle East, after that we can speak about what kind of solution can be found here in Europe. Thanks.
The question on right-wing parties or right-wing party. Yes, we had elections on Saturday, 5th of March, and the result is quite interesting for experts on political science, as quite a number of not standard political parties received enough votes to get into our parliament. One of them is a party of Mr. Kotleba, who represents right-wing extremist party. I think that to also analysts, experts, and politicians will need some time to analyze the situation, but it seems to me that the electorate of this party is mainly consists of mainly of those people who are frustrated by the current situation and by lack of interest of standard political parties in their daily lives, because majority of they got support mainly in those areas where economic progress was very weak, and where mainstream political parties were not willing or were not able to show that they would like to do and they would like to improve the situation, either economic, social, or other situation in those regions. But well, I think that we will have to wait some time for a more proper analysis of this situation. The Prime Minister and the leader of the strongest party was trying to somehow accommodate, as it seems to me that he saw that there could be such a problem, but as we see, looking at the results, he didn't succeed completely in this.
Maybe let me say a couple of words on your to answer your question on the recommendation for Bosnia and Herzegovina in their accession process. I would say the most important and at the same time the most general recommendation is to really mean what you say you are going to do. So if you are involved in the reform process, it doesn't mean just to pass the laws and regulations and declare your readiness to go on with the reforms and to make the list with the percentage of the reform tasks to be fulfilled. What it really means is to implement it, and to implement I mean to work and live according to the laws, to the regulation that you passed. Because you can put anything on the paper. You can sign and promise everything to everybody. But if you don't really mean it, and if you don't really take it into the real life, it doesn't mean anything. And that's the general recommendation. The others, we could talk hours, what should be done, but it is a really difficult, complicated, and time-consuming process, which must involve the whole society. Maybe if you like one little notion on the rise of the right, I would rather say rise of the populists, populist movements, populist political parties all around Western world. That's nothing specific just for, let's say, Slovakia or Poland. Look at the United States. There are two basically populist candidates. One from the left flank, Bernie Sanders, who is still keeping mainstream candidate Hillary Clinton busy, fending him off. And on the other main party, Republican, it looks that the populist is going to win the nomination. It's a kind of, I would say, Western white phenomenon. This, and it doesn't serve as an excuse for the success or this or that party or in one or other particular country, but it's a phenomenon that may seem surprising to some, but each country is in their respective next respective election is going to face this kind of phenomenon, and the mainstream parties and politicians should be ready for it.
Maybe I'd like say one phrase about the recommendation. Coming back to this question, I think that it's very important is understanding that the most important period is for Bosnia and Herzegovina is now. You are starting at the moment on the February the 15th. Is the most important period. The day of the entering into the EU there is not so important because there is the end of the process of transformation of work, and the ability, the skills of proper using this time we started. That is the most important. It will be sometimes very often because you must sometimes or often change habits, nowadays regulation. Sometimes it may be also painful in comparison with our habit, but simple, it's worth it. Before our meeting, I checked the statistical data about Poland, and our GDP is on the level 240 in comparison with the year 89. And it will be, it was impossible to achieve such success. The biggest success, success in the whole 1,000-year history of my nation, out of the EU structure, EU organism, and out of this mechanism. There is, I think, the most important recommendation is that there is worth to work, and the most important period is starting now, not it will be not the day of the entry to the EU. Thank you.
Maybe if you allow me, I would like to make one statement rather than asking the question before we are at the end of the program. I wish our students were able today to listen to Serbian ambassador, Croatian ambassador, Montenegrin ambassador, and Bosnian ambassador on the question of cooperation and integration, the way you did it today for our students. We thank you.
Our support to your of course, the conscience and will is the most important. The structure, law, regulation, there is only the addition.
Well, I suppose we don't have questions over here. Maybe one more, because I think Ericsson's is, we're running out of time. But yes, please, yeah. I'm Professor Brankovic and I'm working here. I'm familiar with Visegrad Group. I gave lecture on situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina in April, almost 2 years ago in Budapest. I'm not of Polish origin, however I used to live and work in Poland. I do love that country. I know language, history and culture of that country. And I visit Poland area at least for 7 days. Now we come to my question. Last summer when I was in Poland, I heard a lot of voices against refugees in media among the people. So obviously Poland was not ready to receive quotas of refugees. So just would like to ask all of you, how do you see solution for refugee crisis? Thank you.
It's a question not easy to answer. We have tried from the, let's say, summer of the last year somehow to coordinate our policies with regards to the refugee or migration crisis. As you said, the case of Poland, where the public hasn't been ready to receive larger numbers of immigrants from, let's say, culturally and religiously different worlds. It's the same situation is in other 3 countries too. The public opinion polls do not different much from country to country in that question. One of the reasons is that our countries have been isolated for decades from the rest of the world. There was no real contact with the other cultures, with even the let's say broader awareness about what was going in the world, what the world was about. So they were quite close. All our societies are still quite close, despite the 25 years of the let's say free development. So there's no preparedness, no experience, no widely shared experience with the coexistence with the other cultures. That's I would describe. I was trying to explain the mental state of mind of the people towards this issue. However, the common position of the Visegrad countries is that the solution must to this issue must start with the securing of the external Schengen border. So the whole migration into the European Union must be a controlled process. There must be. There shouldn't be any single migrant, either whether there is the someone who has the right to ask for asylum, or someone who comes to Europe from primarily economic reasons, who wouldn't be registered. There must be a clear definition of who is and who is not eligible for asylum application in the European Union, and there must be well-defined and executable the return policy concerning those who are not eligible for political asylum, and then after all these basic elements are in place and working, then we can talk about potential distribution of migrants within the EU countries. And again, we should be clear and unified in what would be the status of those refugees who will be given asylum, whether it will be some kind of temporary refuge for them that the European EU countries would offer, or whether some countries will use it for, let's say, dealing with their own migration and even demographic issues. So that's our position, and we are ready not only to help to secure the external border. We already have the police in place now in Macedonia, but Greece has been repeatedly offered both personal and material as well as financial assistance from our countries. We are also ready to contribute our share to the agreement of the European Union with Turkey. We are already active outside of the European Union. For example, the Czech Republic financially supports one of the largest refugee camps in Jordan, where thousands of Syrians live at this time. So we are for the, let's say, the complex European solution, but we believe that we have to start from the beginning, which is the securing of the external border and to have the well-working operational regime, and then we can continue further.
Small addition, under signing, I think that all of remarks of Ambassador Skalnik, of course, are valid, but a small addition to this, the answer depends on the level of the consideration. I take the case of my country, Poland. You must remember that on the one side we accepted with the great openness a couple of years ago 60 or 80,000 Czechia people, and the self-government people, NGOs, were very open. Also, you must remember that in Poland nowadays live almost 1 million Ukrainian people. Of course, they are not refugees; they are rather immigrants, but nevertheless, 1 million foreigners live on the territory of Poland, and I think after the quiet discussion, we are ready to accept and take a new wave of the immigration. But it was a fear after watching TV news and seeing this crowded which came to the boundaries, 100,000 without control, and we knew the announcement of Madam Chancellor of Germany that announced that Germany will accept all refugees, and more, if I well remember, she used the words, we invited all refugees, and after that we didn't want to accept the decision that simple Poland must take from Italy or from the Greece, if I well remember, 35,000 people without decision who will be these concrete refugees. Simple 35,000 EU will decide from Greece or from Italy will be sent to Poland. We very strong, very keen appeal on general solution, general discussion, general rule, and also the right for decided who every country wants to accept, knowing this, because it was the idea at the beginning was 35,000 people without name, without information who are these people, and this connecting with this horrible photo and news in the TV makes such atmosphere, such political climate. But there is only part the response. I think I should generalist attitude. That there is generally the same attitude in the case of all of our countries. Of course, there are differences. Our Hungarian friends are confronted with the boundary directly. For example, Poland until nowadays not Hungary are more confronted with the Syrian or Afghanistan refugees. Our main, I don't want to use the word problem. I'll use very consciously word fact. Maybe they are people from Ukraine, and also we, in our case, in case of Poland, we want to take all emigrants together. Yet we must remember that there are 1 million emigrants from Syria and Afghanistan, but there are also 1 million people from the Ukraine. We are against taking in account only people from Syria and Afghanistan, and for example from Ukraine not. That is why we appeal and we call for general and common consideration. Thank you.
Only short. When we began to speak about the quotas system, we think that it can be a solution. It is not a solution. It is only a point in a process, I think. When I asked, for example, that what can do Turkey for the solution, or the US, or European Union, or I don't know, Hungary, it is not the main point of the problem. Mr. Kavazovic, you know who he is. Mr. Kavazovic said that firstly, we have to speak about what the Muslims can do for the peace, for example, in the Middle East and other places. It's very important, I think. It's very, very important. When they don't want to reach a peace, for example, between the Muslims in Syria or Iraq, right now, I am sure that we cannot solve this problem. Not with power, not with war, not with others. Thank you so much.
Two short remarks. So one question, 4 answers. a year ago, when the numbers of migrants and refugees were relatively low, our countries, including Slovakia, agreed in May, I think, on relocation quotas. But during summer, when there was a substantial increase of the numbers, we said that this will not work, and we need a complex solution, because if we, for example, take, let's say, 20,000 migrants or refugees to Slovakia, within 6 months, 99% they would leave Slovakia and would go to Germany anyway. So that is not a solution, as Brussels representatives and the European Commission was suggesting. The second remark is they are going to the European Union. They are not, why they are not going to Ukraine, Russia, or the Gulf states?